Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with IgniteNet and EdgeCore Networks. Today's host is Dan. He is their field application engineer, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and Dan will be able to answer them at the end of today's presentation. Dan, thank you so much for being with us today. We greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to what you have to share with us. I am finished for now. Please go ahead and take it on over.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me again for Microcom. Okay, so let's get started. All right. Okay, so what I'm covering today is just a couple things. I'm going to cover open roaming and open Wi-Fi, what's new, and then at the end Q&A. Now, right away, I'll say open roaming and open Wi-Fi are completely unrelated things. They just happen to start with the word open, but they're completely different things. But those are the two topics I'm going to cover mainly today. Okay, so what is open roaming? Open roaming is an initiative managed by the Wireless Broadband Alliance. It uses passpoint technology to automatically connect devices securely to wireless access points. Okay, so you may have heard of this before as maybe Hotspot 2.0, Passpoint, 802.11u. There's all these terms. They're kind of similar or synonymous actually. So when you hear open roaming, we're talking about Passpoint. We're even talking about Hotspot 2.0, and maybe even if you're a wireless nerd like me, you might even have heard it as 802.11u, the IEEE standard. But to kind of clarify which is which, the open roaming is the initiative by the Wireless Broadband Alliance. Passpoint is the protocol that it uses, kind of a protocol is a set of rules to help with interoperability. Passpoint and Hotspot 2.0 are basically the same thing. Passpoint is the brand name, where Hotspot 2.0 more describes the functionality itself. There's an excellent paper to screenshot here, actually, if you really want to know more about it, written here at techtarget.com there on the bottom there. Really good info there. All right, so why would you use open roaming? What's the big thing about open roaming? Well, figure it really became more prevalent here with cellular or Wi-Fi, phones offloading from cellular network off to a Wi-Fi network. That's the big thing, and why open roaming is now growing very quickly now. It's becoming a thing more than ever. Where before, not so much. Now, with all the devices now, mobile devices being cellular based and then switching over to Wi-Fi, that's where it's becoming more popular. Now, when I say those three things on there on the left saying why use it, improved cellular coverage. I put that in quotes because it's not actually cellular that it's improving. It's actually Wi-Fi that's providing the coverage. But from the user's perspective, they don't have to know. That's the whole point of it, is to seamlessly transition from a cellular to Wi-Fi without the user knowing or caring. So they could continue their voice call without interruption. So when there's a, say, problematic area where there's a dead zone for cellular, you could now offload that. I should say just provide the coverage from the user's perspective that their phone call can continue without interruption, or their data will go uninterrupted. They won't know the difference, and that's the whole point. From the user's perspective, it is better cellular coverage, but it's really the Wi-Fi providing the coverage. The other thing is offloading data. That's actually what cellular companies like to do. They want to offload data whenever possible. And because they do, there is a monetization. So the provider of the wireless can be paid for this. Okay, so I said you could make money with open roaming. Actually, yes, I could make money. So yes, businesses can make money with open roaming Wi-Fi by monetizing the service and generating revenue from their wireless networks. Here's a screenshot here from Google Orion, which is one of the key players in open roaming and facilitating this. The typical could be around 50 cents a gigabyte, but it can add up. So what is Google Orion? So Google Orion is not required for open roaming to work, but acts as a key platform that makes it easier for the Wi-Fi provider to then connect, interact connection between the cellular provider, say, and the Wi-Fi. They're helping it happen. And I'm going to mention more about Google Orion because they're a big player in this. From their perspective, it's really just think about it is, okay, so you got your open roaming. Now, the open roaming, the user credentials are put in through Orion with an SSID so that you could have multiple different networks and different, say, cellular and Wi-Fi networks. From the user's perspective, it will still automatically join. And that's the key. So you're not completely locked down to one. And of course, we're one of them. There's many manufacturers that are supported by Google Orion. You can see there, EdgeCore, we're there. There's even a white paper on our setup, how to do it with our EC cloud. And if you need more support, more specifically on setup, maybe on the cellular side, I suggest contacting Orion directly there with their support. If it's something on, say, EC Cloud, you might want to reach out to us. It kind of depends on what the exact circumstance is. Here's a screenshot of the document on actually how to set it up. That's on their site, on Orion's site, with our cloud. So you see cloud.ignitenet.com. This is actually setting it up, and all the information is there on their site. We partnered with them to get that figured out. All right, so open roaming versus DAS. So I'm going to bring up DAS, a distributed antenna system. I figured I'd bring this up because, one of the things with open roaming, the big things to do it is to improve I call it again, quote, cellular coverage, where cellular coverage could be poor. You could, instead of adding or installing a distributed antenna system, you could opt for using Wi-Fi. The cost of installing a distributed antenna system is extremely high. I did a ChatGPT and generated a picture of of a DAS system. This is what it came up with. I put crossed out sign, but it's kind of funny when you do AI and see what pictures it comes up with, a bunch of antennas. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's not a competition to a distributed antenna system. I mean, realistically, it may be so cost prohibitive, the cellular coverage would just remain poor, and it's not always inside buildings, but a lot of times it could be, or it could even be cities and areas where there just isn't good cellular coverage. You could then, instead of considering a DAS or deal with no coverage or poor coverage, you could go with open roaming to provide coverage. Actually, that's what originally we had a customer reaching out to us to connect. That's why we connected with Google Orion to get them working. And update our cloud and get all the necessary things to get it working with them, because there was the main reason was just simply because they had poor cellular coverage. So all they were trying to do is offload for coverage reasons, not necessarily to monetize, not even to offload data off cellular network. They were just interested in getting better coverage from the, again, cell phone, the user's perspective. A phone call, a voice call would remain and keep working even though they were seamlessly connected to a Wi-Fi network unknowingly. So it can also complement a DAS. Say you put in a DAS, but there's still areas that there's some dead zones or things like that. You could then, in a sense, roam to the Wi-Fi, or just simply offload the amount of traffic, the amount of data used on the DAS and on the cellular network by switching over to wireless or Wi-Fi. Okay, covered that. Now I'm going to cover tip open Wi-Fi. Now, completely two unrelated things. So two topics today. This one is tip open Wi-Fi. So nothing to do with open roaming, but they're, okay, so there we go. Tip open Wi-Fi. What is TIP? Okay, so this is stands for Telecom Infra Project. It's open source initiative. So we kind of have another initiative. But the point of it is to be open source and vendor neutral. So you're not locked into a particular vendor. So you could use different vendors to connect to, say, one controller. Or you could even be not locked down to one specific controller. Or you could even create your own controller, or a cloud SDK. You get the SDK to make, in a sense, make your own. So why would you use this? The main thing is ultimately lowering costs. Also, it makes this was huge, especially during COVID times, where the product availability, when there's supply chain issues, we're constrained, that you could use different vendors. And you may find, let's say you want to use a certain vendor that has a certain, you have your favorite access point for, let's say, a wall plate type versus an outdoor AP. You could use different vendors, or a switch. Let's say you like certain vendors switch versus the access point, or just simply it comes down to availability or price. All those things are factors. It also allows you to use different cloud controllers that are out there that support the open Wi-Fi. So that maybe you might find that specific clouds are, in a sense, used where in your vertical, it's best used in your vertical, where it could really do a better job than maybe a different vendor's cloud controller. Okay, and originally I thought, what is this tip open Wi-Fi thing? It's not going to go anywhere. It's because vendors got everything locked down, and the big dogs play out there. They didn't take this too seriously, I think, in the beginning, but it's gathering momentum. And now, just recently, September, there's over 100,000 devices now participating and connecting on the open Wi-Fi network with all the access points and switches. Now, it's coined open Wi-Fi, but there's switches. Actually, you see EdgeCore has a whole bunch of switches that are supported with open Wi-Fi. So the name originally started with open Wi-Fi, but maybe you should just call it TIP, because it's not just limited to access points. Originally it was, and then I think they added switches to the mix as well. So I mentioned cloud controllers. So here's a list of some of the cloud controllers that are out there that are supported by open Wi-Fi, TIP open Wi-Fi. You can see their net experience. There's EdgeCore. Actually, we have our own cloud controller. It's kind of similar to the EC cloud, but it's specific for it's EC open, but it's for the TIP devices specifically. You could even build your own, and there's many. But some have a niche. For example, like net experience, I've heard really good feedback on kind of MDU spaces where there's a high density applications where there's a lot of co-channel interference there. I've had really good feedback on their RRM working really well. So that's good for a good fit for that vertical market. They seem to do really well there. In a sense, making our APs do really well and perform really well, which we like. Also, you could actually combine TIP open Wi-Fi with open roaming. This is not to get confusing, but there was a case actually I found where the TIP open Wi-Fi used, and along with Helium. Helium's really just a cellular network riding off, I believe, the T-Mobile network, but they're like a third party. They're like a Mint, but they combined with working together with. So there was 16,000 access points deployed to offload some of the cellular data and voice traffic. So, and as far they didn't, I know this deployment wasn't using our product, but let's just say out of 16,000, in theory, they only were able to secure 10,000. They needed 6,000 more. They could have went with a different vendor for the remaining 6. That's kind of the advantage of going this route. Okay, now I mentioned EdgeCore. Actually, EdgeCore, of all those 100,000 plus devices now, EdgeCore is the forefront, has the most. As far as I know, there's other vendors that make TIP open Wi-Fi, but we are the leader. We have the most out there. And these are all the products. There's a pretty long list here, and it's growing. Like usually every month or two, I see, a couple more show up here. The list is just getting bigger and bigger. There actually are some older IgniteNet APs that are supported. So if you have those on hand, you want to play with it, or you could even use those. There's the EdgeCore APs you see there, and then a whole bunch of switches here. There's a ton of switches. And if you want to check what's available on there, you could just go to that website there, our website, Open Wi-Fi, and you can see all the supported devices. As it progresses, you'll see more coming, like I said, every month or two. Okay, so if you're interested in getting one of the TIP open Wi-Fi devices, don't confuse it. Okay, our part numbers are the same, like very similar, I should say. Like an EAP 101, that's our Wi-Fi 6 indoor 2x2 access point, Wi-Fi 6 AP, standard AP. But if you buy it for the EdgeCore EC Cloud, the standard cloud, you got to buy the EdgeCore part number. If you want it for tip open Wi-Fi, make sure you get it with the part number with parentheses T on it when you order it. So make sure you're getting the tip open Wi-Fi version. If you get the wrong version, obviously they won't work. It won't work with EC Cloud if you have the tip version, and if you have the regular EdgeCore version, it won't work with tip open Wi-Fi. You can convert it. It's kind of cumbersome and clumsy. You got to use the console cable, and it's a mess. I'd rather just make sure you get the right one. We can do it if you have one on hand. Reach out to support. Reach out to Oxford. Oxford's a dedicated email specifically with our EdgeCore group that specifically handles tip open Wi-Fi product. So anything related to that, go to Oxford specifically. Just wanted to point that out. So assuming you do get the right product, when the device first connects to the internet, it will talk to the uCentral server to then know which URL, which tip open Wi-Fi controller to connect to. So it's important that if you don't use the default one, which is EC open, that you tell us ahead of time before you power it up and put it on the internet, because it'll then hone into going to uCentral, which defaults to EC open, which is maybe the wrong cloud, the wrong tip open Wi-Fi cloud. So reach out to us. We could change it. We'll go to the uCentral controller for you and change the redirector URL. That's important. So anytime you purchase, email us, let us know. If you bought 100 APs, 500 APs, you got to let us know, and then we'll update it before you provision them. All right, and switch now gears to what's new. So I'm just going to cover two new products. Now the EAP112 I had mentioned in the previous webinar with Microcom, so you want to check that out in more detail. I really got into Halo with the previous webinar, so check their YouTube channel for the previous webinar I did with them on that. But here, I'll go over it again. The EAP112, it's now available. It was kind of, you could get samples, but now if you want, you can put orders in and get a sample, or I believe we have samples available, and I believe we have initial run coming. So check that out. Now, the big thing with this one is it's completely unique. It's a Halo. It's using the Morse Micro 900 megahertz Halo chip, which is super cool. This is totally different than anything else out there. 8211AH, so it's pretty cool. And actually, interesting, it's even, we do have a tip open Wi-Fi version. So it's pretty much the only IoT gateway capable, 900 megahertz capable device that I know of that's supported on the tip open Wi-Fi platform. If you want more information on this, certainly reach out to us. We'll be glad to help you out, or if you want to get a sample. Now the EAP105, that's the Wi-Fi 7 tri-band AP, 802.11be. It's 3 radios, so it's concurrent. It's got 3 2x2 radios in it. The good thing about this one is that it is, from a power perspective, it's still within the 802.3 AT power consumption. So you could use a standard, 30 watt PoE plus switch. You're not forced to use a high power switch. So max power around 24 watts. Actually, it's much lower than on average. It has a 5 gig PoE LAN port and also a secondary 1 gig LAN port. They'll be available ETA around Q1, but if you want to get a sample, reach out to us and you get on the list. And of course, we'd like you to test out our products. Common question that I get, I think this was on the previous webinar, so I wanted to just make a slide on it. So what are the warranties? So EdgeCore access points have a 3-year warranty. The switches have a 3-year warranty. IgniteNet products have a 2-year warranty, and accessories have a 1-year warranty. All right, so pretty quick webinar. Julie, that's it. If you have any questions for me, let me know.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate that. And yes, let me get our questions up in here for you. Here we go. Excuse me. First question for you, sir. Are there any specific hardware requirements for deploying open roaming?
Open roaming requirements, I don't, well, the only one would figure it's specific, mainly kind of limited to simply the access points that support it. As far as I know, all Wi-Fi 6 access points support open roaming. Our cloud controller, EC Cloud. So in other words, anything EAP in front of it, access points will support open roaming. The older Spark, the IgniteNet stuff, I do not believe do. So that's the only caveat.
Thank you so much for that. Next question here for you. Are there specific challenges when implementing open roaming in rural areas?
Not really anything specific within rural, but say that might be one of the reasons to do it, actually, because cellular coverage is often poor there. That would be actually an excellent use case where cellular coverage is poor. It's not cost effective to even, maybe it's not even cost effective to use a private LTE. That's another option, is private LTE. So it could be either a choice instead of private LTE, or again, kind of like it could complement it. Again, so there's different ways of providing a solution. So I would think in that type of scenario, actually, that would be a good use case. Actually, there's not really any challenges except obviously providing good internet to the devices, and you might not need to do, say point-to-point or point-to-multipoint backhauls to the access points that are providing that coverage. But other than that, that would be probably a good use case for it.
Thank you so much for that, Dan. A couple more questions here. Here we go. Can open roaming be integrated with existing Wi-Fi infrastructure?
Yeah, that's the whole point of it, actually. See, if you already had a deployment of, let's just say you had a dorm or something, or a college, and you had 500 of our access points already deployed, you could just simply add this open roaming and provision it, and now you're pretty much up and running. That's kind of a nice thing. If you already have the hardware implemented, you could then update it, and you could even now enjoy a potential revenue stream by doing so. That's what the carriers could be. You could be paid by the carriers. That's why I kind of mentioned there in the Google Orion slide about getting paid. So yeah, that would be a good use case.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next question here. How does EdgeCore IgniteNet ensure compatibility with open Wi-Fi standards?
Well, I think that it's just basically how all the manufacturers do it. I mean, we stick to the, for example, standards like 802.11, AC, BE, all those things. We're no different than any of the other manufacturers as far as that goes. I mean, we're tested. Now, I will say that this one step further, for compliancy with devices to be approved, I want to go, actually, I'm glad this question was asked. With open Wi-Fi, open roaming, tip open Wi-Fi, there's a higher standard. They do more advanced testing, and it has to be approved. The product has to pass strict testing for interoperability and functionality. So that ensures that, say, our products are even one step better in the fact that it would work, say, not just with open Wi-Fi, but with even just standard Wi-Fi. So it's kind of good that we're part of this, that it ensures our products, say the quality of how well it will work is actually one step higher because of that requirement.
Thank you so much for that, Dan. Couple more questions. How does EdgeCore IgniteNet approach troubleshooting for open Wi-Fi networks?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, main thing is reach out to Oxford for tip open Wi-Fi specific support. That's how we want you to email us, and we'll take it from there. We're worldwide. I handle the North America side, but depending on the time, it could be anywhere worldwide. We're there to help. when it comes to Edge Core, non-tip open Wi-Fi and IgniteNet support, we just ask you email just standard support@edge-core.com. Like in the slide there, you could also request samples at sales@edge-core.com or inquire about product availability and you know, the things we mentioned about that, or even future products. You just reach out to sales for that kind of stuff.
Excellent, thank you. Last question here for you. What unique advantages does Edge Core IgniteNet's products offer for open roaming deployments compared to competitors?
Well, I would say one is the long list of products. You have a lot of choices. You know, you got 2x2, 4x4. You got there's Wi-Fi 7 now coming out, and then uniquely the 900 megahertz product. And the switch list is, you saw how long the switch list is, so a huge list of products. That's I mean, it's the main thing as far as interoperability, as far as, in other words, advantage. In other words, you could, that's kind of a tricky question, because that's the point of kind of open roaming, is that you could have choices depending on, let's say if there's there could be possible some other vendor has this specific product that is better than ours. Let's just say you like it more for whatever reason, it does something ours doesn't, I don't know, or the hardware, the whatever, that's okay, go with that one for that vertical or whatever you're doing, and then you'll find it. We have a lot of choices. You know, obviously I think with open roaming, I could say this, we have the most out there for a reason. So we're probably you know, when it comes to that, we're very strong in it. They go with our products probably. I'd say other is very price competitive as well. So you know, those are kind of the main reasons. We have a lot of choices, and that's another thing. If you have, for example, like there's the EAP 111. Well, you can get an EAP 101 if it's unavailable. You know, you can get one. You know, the different models are very close. You know, if it's unavailable one model, you can get one that's very close. Another is our EAP 104, which is our indoor wall plate. It's really popular at MDUs. That one's really good. So we have a pretty good list of products available that probably gives us an advantage in the market right now, because you saw the list of old products on the open Wi-Fi list there. Yeah.
Dan, thank you so much for answering those questions for us today. And thanks to everyone for joining this webinar. And if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to contact your sales rep and email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown today, please remember that this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so we can view it again. Dan, we appreciate your time for sharing all of this information with us. And hopefully we could do this again in a couple of months and see what's going on in 2025 and the rest of the new year. So again, appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Julie.
Bye-bye now.